for socialists at this critical moment in responding to the deepest economic crisis since the 1930s, and of course crises of the environment, of imperial wars, and so on. So what is your view of what should be the priority for the left and for socialists in particular at this moment? Who would like to kick it off? Give me a couple of seconds to think about it. Go ahead.
Hello, everyone. I may not handle every aspect of the universal crisis that Mark spoke about. I'm Mildred Williamson. But I do want to pick up on the economic situation in the United States. I think most of us know the situation with the bailout of the banks and so forth, but there's yet to be a fundamental moratorium on foreclosures, and there's yet to be a full addressment of the dismantling of public housing, actually destruction of public housing, and replacement with market-level housing where it did exist in the past. And to the extent that there can be some bringing together of those who have traditionally worked in the movement against homelessness and for affordable housing, that needs to be married with this whole issue of the foreclosure crisis. Just like so many other things in this society, this too is not a random thing. It is disproportionately affecting people who are already on the margins already, and I would argue that even amongst the foreclosure, people affected by foreclosure, you still have the disproportionate number of people affected in this way in terms of being victimized by subprime loans and the predatory lending. That said, those same people who may have found a way to buy a home even under unfortunate circumstances, our lot in life does not remove one group away from the working class who may have been able to have purchased a home even under those circumstances from the next person who is unable to pay their rent or unable to have a place to live at all. So I think that we have to find much more ways to bring people together rather than caving in, if you will, on the silos that are presented to us by those in power.
My name is Judith LeBlanc, and first I want to start by thanking the committees of correspondence for presenting us with this opportunity to have a dialogue, because the most interesting and most important part of the last 8 years, really, and even before that, but during these last 8 years of intensive build-up of crisis, many of us have been working shoulder to shoulder, gathering on a national level, but more on a local level in the labor movement and the peace movement, strategizing. And there is a great need, and we really appreciate the opportunity to have this broader discussion and strategizing, because the crisis requires that. I think the top priority for the left right now is that I hate to mix metaphors, but I think we gotta come in from the margins and stay in the frying pan. Mixing my metaphors, but I think you know what I mean. I think, it's been easy and somewhat objective that at times the left has been on the side, has been pushed to the side, and has not been in the mainstream of the debate and dialogue about the direction of the country. But the significance of the election of the left is that millions were in motion. They believed change. That there's an opportunity now to move millions into action and to build the political space that this election has opened up. We're pretty far from that in the sense of the movement's being ready and able to challenge the right. And frankly, we got to come in from the margins, so we got to get into that frying pan and mix it up with the center, which is the vast cross-section of people who, you know, aren't quite sure. They know that capitalism is in crisis, but they don't know necessarily what should replace it or what the solutions are. So I say, get out of the margins and get deeply rooted in the struggle for reforms, because that's what's going to take the way for some basic, radical, progressive change in the long run.
I'm Michael Rubin from Solidarity, and I also want to thank CCDS for hosting this forum and inviting me to participate in it. I think the number one thing in terms of the economic crisis is the fight back. That is, considering the depth of the crisis, the severity of the crisis, the fight back has been relatively weak in my judgment. And what we need to do is to try and understand why that is and put our efforts as leftists into finding that fight back and nurturing that fight back and growing that fight back. And that's what I don't see here. And I think it's very unfortunate that people are sort of disoriented. They're sort of waiting around for something to happen, and very little is happening. And that's a very difficult situation to be in, but that is the situation that we find ourselves. We need to understand how we got into that situation and find whatever fight back there is and nurture it.
Yeah, to follow on what Michael said, I mean, I think programmatically, I think programmatically, Joseph Schwartz, from DSA, anyway. Programmatically, I think we have broad agreement in terms of what strategic agreements, what issues to mobilize people around. But I think we have to be brutally honest. One, unlike the early 30s or the early 60s, the number of socialist, ideologically socialist communist candidates in this country is not significant. There are more unorganized socialists, as much as that contradiction terms, than there are organized socialists. The second thing is the level of mass activity, the level of resistance. Michael is right, is not, even though it took a long time for the mass movements of the 30s to heat up, there certainly isn't, as in the 60s, a mass civil rights movement in motion. There's certainly, even in the early 30s, you already have mass movements of the unemployed, of the foreclosed. You have masses of people throwing furniture back in after the sheriff throws it back out. And I think we do have to talk about why. Obviously, there's some resistance, but I think, you know, we can take some solace from, say, the public windows, etc. But these local areas of resistance, there's some anti-foreclosure stuff, and people are trying to get around that. They're not large enough to really spark imitative local movements around the country. And that's probably what we have to work for. I do think this is an easier thing, because I think we have the easier thing I'm going to say is what issues might produce that spark, but how you get the people in motion to generate the spark, and what the role of socialist organizations and socialists should be. That's the tricky question. But I do think, one, we're in California. There is going to be a fight in the fall and winter, and I'm not optimistic about our winning